I'm username Intel. We're going on to Gibraltar, and that's Apathy, my absolutely beautiful color caster.
Yeah, you got all the words pronounced correctly. We'll see if we can get some of these player names pronounced correctly, though. That's the harder part.
Some of these players just decide like the worst type of names. Okay.
Not too bad, except for one specific person I'm noting here. But other than that, moving on. We're going to see Gibraltar first up. I think we're going to see a lot of dive. Shenandoah, of course, a very competent ball team. So we'll have to see if they can get a ball mirror. He's going to roll out on the monkey for now, as well as this soldier. Again, I'm a big soldier fan. Even though he's never really considered the best, he's just kind of... He's never really bad either.
I think that's what Soldier works well with too.
Yeah.
It's just kind of being that mitigator.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see how much he can do. He doesn't have a mercy pocket, but he's gonna have a brig to protect him. We'll see if GMU's Echo is gonna be able to get much value in the face of this soldier, and if the ball is gonna be able to kind of knock them off the high ground and get some big disruption here.
It can definitely work, the wrecking ball composition. Not traditional when it comes to just Gibraltar, but I can't say that I've never seen it attempted. It can be very much a hit or miss. It just matters how they're going to try to hit it out. It seems they are using these discords more to set up how they want to take these engagement. Just taking in a slow type of fight. Matthew just gets immediately melted down, and that's one of the reasons why it breaks. It's just a little bit unfortunate, especially since George Mason, they don't have anything to kind of sustain their team. We already see them lose to reset and then go back onto the dive. So at least they're like kind of confident in saying, yep, we know what we need to do.
Yeah, they're switching to the monkey, but the interesting thing is they're keeping the Zenyatta. I believe it's partially just because he had the high ground, doesn't really want to fully reset and wrap around because of how long it takes on this map. Oh, there he goes. So actually it was that it just took him that long to get back to spawn and swap to the Ana. So now he's going to have another long rotation to get back up to high ground.
It's a lot of time kind of slowing down, though it seems coming back was just enough. That Anti's going to hit Dragon. They managed to just barely escape. Matthew, however, is not going to be able to kind of copy out that act. More of a disappearing trick, if I could say more than that. And it seems, luckily though, that Anti may be hitting them. That Ana just barely going to be able to escape. But George Mason's University, they're not having enough room. They are just struggling to let their Reinhardt push in. I'm guessing they're going to more rely on to the Nano. But losing out your Mercy basically means you've entered this fight in a 5v6. Matthew's already, once again, struggling to stay up. Less than half health, split from the support line. Luckily going to be making it into their Ana's own LOS. But even then, they still have to take one massive staggered fight.
Yeah, they're gonna get caught out once again. A really good pulse from King Kong Poppy, one of the stars of the Shenandoah team. We'll have to see if they can what they can do with this Nano. A relatively fast Nano, considering it was basically half a fight on her.
Yep, they're moving in, using that visor. A really nice early push. Payload doesn't even get a chance to move. The rest of the team just finding themselves picked off, even those underneath. We even see Matthew wanting to use that Primal Rage just to try to kind of boot, but has to use it to escape. I'm more impressive that they managed to escape than anything.
Shenandoah is just playing really well with the initiative. Like, GMU is trying to get rotated, trying to set up. They want their Ana on this high ground so that she can pocket Matthew as he goes in. And Shenandoah is just taking the initiative, coming out really aggressively with ults around these corners and punishing them when they try to take space.
Definitely true, though IB using out this copy is gonna help make a change. They find out that Ana and they sleep out King Kong. This is now looking good in favor of Georgia Mason as they're building up an economy and starting to figure out how Shenandoah are playing. They're using that Primal and Bomb just to try to make things up. It seems to just barely manage to find out IP. Voidix coming back in, finding the Tracer. No longer in favor of George Mason. They don't even have control over this game. Completely split. The dive tanks have to try to disengage as fast as possible. But it just seemed that Dragon Blade was ready to poke you out and let that baby be the escape.
Yeah, but he's gonna have to probably reset, which is gonna be... They've got just barely enough time to make it. If this was another 10 seconds, that would have been a brutal stagger. They used almost all of their ultimates. They build up to another nano. But other than that, they used a lot. A really good pick from Mr. 26-inch, though, to start off this fight. Let's see if they can do something with it.
Well, that early pick onto the Tracer could be a lot, especially with this Nano going onto the Monkey, blocking off the Ana. It's looking like a great condition to win here, especially just as Voidix wants to use this visor, but doesn't really have the self-sustain to be able to pop it out. Still, with that confidence, they want to be able to use it, try to slow this fight down, maybe try to make a difference. Don't have that healing spot, so it's more of just a struggle. So it's given enough room for King Kong to come back, fall down, almost a very nice full hold. Unfortunately, though, it's gonna have to stop here. That anti shuts down both of the support lines. George Mason University, they're gonna be able to cap the first point.
Yeah, Pat switching to the Lucio for the stall. I'm curious, he does go back to the Mercy. The Mercy is an interesting pick here as opposed to the Brig. Of course, Brig better at the dive, but I think this is in response to the Soldier. As weird as that sounds, playing Echo Mercy into Soldier, they realize that Shenandoah is playing a little bit more for poke and a little bit less for dive, so they're taking the risk on this Mercy. We'll have to see if Shenandoah A can try to punish them for that with some more aggressive dives like the one we're seeing now.
Yep, an early engagement. Nonetheless, it works out very well in their favor. Though they trade out Enders, it seems that George Mason's own tank line aren't going to be able to just move forward continuously until IB is able to pick off Dragon, build up this copy. They use that nano, fully heal up Matthew, and they are still jumping on top of the high ground. Shenandoah don't have any ultimates to truly contest against this. They have to use that bomb solely just to come back and make this fight into a CST6 as Rez comes on to hand form. But it matters how they're taking this engagement, going on top of the high ground. Dragon Blade wants to be able to take out that Ana, but doesn't really get the opportunity to, and it's getting body blocked. Shenandoah leave their own backline to be opened up as we see just the entirety of their team slowly being poked out. That visor built from the copy eventually done, but they managed to push it to second point, truly uncontested, because Dragon Blade was putting a lot of effort onto the backline, and it just seems that they're going to have to make some switches if they want to stop them on this third point.
Yeah, they should have a stronger dive. They just have a little bit less follow-up from their Tracer. King Kong Poppy's kind of getting checked rather effectively from Mr. 26 and Ibix, and he's not really able to follow up with Dragon Blade on these dives. It's very strange to see the team with the Brig, the one unable to live through the dives.
It's just like Ana is really staying well with Enders. Though they finally have an opportunity, they made a very nice dive, they worked as a unit, and they pushed through. The unfortunate part is that Dragon is split off by a primaling Monkey, and is not really able to kind of escape without that dying to the bomb. Now they have to use that rally just to make some type of difference, give themselves that armor to be that own tank. And it's kind of helping out a little bit. It's being that kind of small factor. But George Mason, they don't really care. They're kind of just waiting out their time bank. They're even having a little Tracer 1v1 to have a tiny bit of fun, just poking each other out. But Handform comes back, throws that nano, and the pulse bomb from King Kong gets Ian just a little bit too predicted. Though Voidex able to trade out, finding them. It seems Shenandoah have found their bread and butter, able to just quickly take this fight and shut them down. That's an ultimate really big nano that could have just ended the fight, just shut down.
Yeah, really good play from Fena. I believe he actually slept Matthew there. I saw the sleeping icon over the Monkey while we were watching the Tracer icon, so I believe he made that hero play, slept the Nano Monkey, and just basically completely negated that ultimate with a single cooldown.
Let's see how they try to make that difference though. Mason, oh no, they've lost their tank. At least they have the copy using the Primal, being able to make that difference. Trying to bubbling out that Mercy, but they're really going to be able to escape for a little bit. Dragon not going to be able to pop out that Primal Rage fast enough. Though that is a really nice bomb to be able to hit that Tracer. Unfortunately, though, it leads to IB being able to just melt you down. Though your team having the respawn advantage, that's really helping out Shenandoah a lot in these fights.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he's not happy to be stuck in Baby Diva form. We might see GMU switch. Are they going to full switch, or they're just switching their main tank? Alright, they're just switching their main tank to a Reinhardt for this last fight. While Gibraltar is very good for dive, Ryan is acceptable on third point.
See, they use this nano as their basically mitochondria, whatever type of medical phrase to kind of push in. Managing to find out the Ana, they do barely get that res out, but they have to touch the point if they want any room to be able to stop it. Just barely getting it, but they lost 2 in the cover fire. And it just seems Shenandoah have this point locked down. That Diva can try to fly as much as they want. That Tracer can try to blink as much as they want. But Shenandoah, they're going to kill you faster than a blink of the eyes. They stop it to second point, but this is still not really kind of in favor of Shenandoah. It's still incredibly hard to push that payload, and they weren't really winning those fights, especially when George Mason got the momentum flowing. So I wonder how they're going to be able to slow things down.
Yeah, they really did quite well. Any fight that Mason won did take quite a long time. You know, there was a lot of trades back and forth in the fight, so they weren't always like really fully able to set up for the next one. Fights went a little long, so that was good from Shenandoah. We'll have to see what they can do on their attack here, or if Mason can, excuse me, because Gibraltar is a fairly common full holdable map. We almost saw Shenandoah do it. Like, it's really easy to full hold first, especially like, what is it, like 2 meters before the cart reaches first point. That box is brutal to be full held on.
Ooh. Yeah, this is going to be just a quick pause. It seems we're just looking at something going to be having some lag, a little bit of issues, a quick reset. But I want to be seeing more out of Shenandoah, especially in these types of engagements. A lot of the way that they're kind of taking these fights are more interesting than anything. I think we're often seeing Dragon Blade kind of invest a lot in diving alone. While George Mason, they're spending like 2 people at most to go in, and it's that Diva who's being able to kind of put that pressure in. I'm wondering, should Shenandoah try to play more of the counter dives?
Yeah, that's what they're kind of doing with the soldier, or not necessarily counter diving, but really trying to poke out the dive before it even happens. I think that was what the soldier was being run for, and of course GMU responding with that Mercy, which they are going to just roll out on the Mercy on defense, which is, in my opinion, fairly bold to not start a Brig on defense, because even if the Mercy does well, it's so easy for them to just switch off soldier and really start to overwhelm on form on this Ana without that Brig pocket. So we'll have to see what he can do to survive a little bit more on his own than Fena was on that defense.
Now, this is where Shenandoah can start putting it in. They just have to look to build this ult economy and take this fight as early as possible, especially with Mr. 26 being onto that Soldier 76. Ironically, numbers enough. They're going to be having a lot of poke and being able to be very mobile. Voidex and Dragon already taking an immense amount of damage, but they're more focused on pushing this payload, allowing that Tracer to kind of set themselves up, and then take the dive when they are least expecting it or just a little bit unprepared. It seems Matthew Doe wants to try to take it early, immediately gets spooked off. This high ground is no longer in their favor, so they just decide to put pressure onto the point. Though these soldiers truly wants to be able to take each other out, it seems only Mr. is going to be able to find out Voidex. Now with his anti hitting on Dragon, they can't push anymore. They're a little bit more uncomfortable. King Kong able to kind of peel back in, work with Dragon, but eventually get hit by that kind of big lag from Mr. 26. Being able to get these picks are absolutely phenomenal. Shenandoah can't push this payload anymore, especially if they are not 6.
Yeah, and he's not even like really on a hard high ground angle. He's kind of on low ground and still fighting these crazy picks, which is very impressive. We did see the cart get very far, of course. Mason doesn't have a tracer to check the other tracer pushing cart, which is a bit of a struggle here.
I have to agree. Though, look at that beautiful pick onto Ivy very early on. They had the copy. They could slowly stop the fight. And a good boop to stop that Winston from being able to kind of do more with that jump. Now with the visor kind of forcing them out, they managed to find out Mr. Entry is trying to use the visor of their own and gets punished for it. Now Liana trying to make any type of difference is going to be just eventually put out Shenandoah, now working as a unit, being able to slowly break it out. They at least choose on the side of George Mason not to use that bomb. They still want to contest as long as possible, even if it is a failed effort. They save that ultimate. So they have a good idea when going on to the second point, but Shenandoah, 4 minutes over that clock, maybe 3 when they start moving in. They're going to be looking nice nonetheless.
Yeah, they've still got that duplicate as well, which I think is going to be the big ult for them to try to hold this point. Of course, Shenandoah does have both support ultimates, which are fairly oppressive in the dive mirror, that it can be so hard to get onto people when they rally, and it's so hard to live when they have Mana Monkey.
And I think you make a great point, because the rally's only doing so much. Nobody's building armor on the side of the team, but it's more trying to protect out Viana, but it's just not enough. 2 Winstons are always better than 1, as I'd like to say, and while Ivy managed to lose it out, Stickies are much better than a Winston. One of the most overpowered abilities in the game, being able to take out engines, though King Kong being able to freely push this payload, doing a nice job of just kind of protecting it, trying to just push it as far as they can, until they eventually lose it, and don't really have the majority to be able to do as much as they want, just immediately disengaging. Although George Mason, in that kind of counter time, they're building up their own ult.
Yeah, King Kong has quietly been doing quite a lot on this payload, and every time Matthew comes to contest him, he gets completely blown up. So really good from King Kong here. We'll see if Shenandoah wants to kind of take the earlier fight with this Nano that they have that GMU doesn't, perhaps.
Definitely see. Look at this. Now, setting up. They use that Nano onto the monkey, though it's kind of just helping. Wait, no, not the monkey. Somebody else. I'm guessing the Tracer didn't even see who it truly landed on. But even then, Dragon are using it to their advantage. Now popping out the visor. Void X is just being able to poke anyone out who gets caught. But unfortunately, eventually caught out themselves, which is an oxymoron in itself of the amount of times I've said that either way, continuing inside this fight. That bomb going up high, seeing George Mason want to be using their ultimates to try to sustain themselves for as long as possible. Mr. 26 being able to just burst down, but killing himself by accident does kind of look a little bit embarrassing. They're still being able to push, and that remake tried to kill, though it did no damage just over Shenandoah, though, in the favor of the teams. Matthew's dangerously low, doesn't really have the support to be able to sit there and heal, so they have to just immediately disengage from the fight, allowing Shenandoah to push the payload for as far as they can, until we see Right try to contest as much as possible, but, you know, right in your face is right back to the spawn room in a good second, just trying to stay alive as much as they can, but getting melee to death by King Kong is a little bit more funny. I think it's a little less efficient, but hey, it works.
Yeah, and it just staggers them out just a little bit. I think that GMU was close to being able to recontest that. Unfortunately, the supports weren't really able to get set up where the soldier was. Their spawns were a little bit too, you know, they weren't really synced up, so it was a bit tough for them. And we're seeing George Mason go back to this Reinhardt for third point that they did on their attack as well. We'll see if they can make it a lot harder for Shenandoah to push into them.
Line works better in the third point, and they're already showing it to great extensions as they immediately pick to using that Nano as a reason to move forward. Even while they were anti, they still overstayed their welcome. Now with Dragon being anti, there's just no escape free for you without using that Primal Rage. But luckily enough, they had the IQ and kind of the confidence to say, you know what, let's not try it. They are making some swaps. I wonder how, I was going to say how long that monkey's going to stay there. Maybe use that Primal Rage, but Primal doesn't get too much value. So at least when moving in, they are looking more. That copy's going to be hitting that Reinhardt, looking to put that damage. The bomb forcing the Soldier 76 off the high ground. Now this counter bomb playing out forward. We need to push into this fight. Dragon Blade going to be able to find out Matt, but getting hit with that shatter, even managing to get that res onto Matthew, at least brings this more to their favor. The Void Act still wanting to be as confident as ever, shuts you down. There is just not much to care about. Although there is when Mr. 26 is able to pop out their own visor. Now Dragon Blade wants to shield as much as possible until it gets broken by the Storm Arrows. well, it hurts. They found an amazing pick in the early fight, but they're not being able to work off of it. Now half of their team is completely split on top of the high ground with no room of trying to escape. Now with King Kong gone and a timing of around a minute and 20 seconds or less, being staggered like this only hurts. They even had to use the Shatter. I mean, if you're gonna make them kill you, at least make them kill you in an annoying fashion.
Yeah, the Shatter might have been a bit of some style points, a little bit of an overinvestment. But we saw that fight looked good for Shenandoah A. They just weren't able to dislodge this high ground. So Mr. 26 still had high ground control and was able to pretty much turn it around with that visor. He had to finally give it up at the end, but at that point his full team respawned and then, helped him to take it back over. We'll have to see what they each are going to do with these windows.
I'm more worried for Shenandoah. They really don't have a shield to pop out the window, so as they take this rotation, and it's a very, very slow one, but it's still somewhat working out. They are just going to rotate a kind of weird, unnecessary rotation onto the point, and lose out too in the cross front. So at least you get that trade there, but the windows leave yourself a little bit more open. Though Dragon having something else to say, using that Shatter, isn't really able to shield out the Baptiste, who just gets picked off. George Mason University bringing up the clutch factor to a high degree, focusing them out. Now with 5 seconds on the clock, they have to try to touch the point if they want anyone to be able to do anything. However, it's just going to be a bit more unfortunate, bringing in those last seconds of response in favor of George Mason, and they use that Shatter to pick off anybody who came close. That Blizzard just not enough, maybe one of the most overpowered abilities in the game, but you just don't have that room to be able to do as much as you can. Now with the Baptiste slowly being picked out, and the Wrecking Ball trying to just contest, it is eventually over for the side of Shenandoah A. Already being put onto the back foot, George Mason University, they are going to take Watch Point Gibraltar.
Yeah, at the beginning of that fight, it looked like a weird rotation, but remember, that was where the Soldier absolutely dominated them on the last fights. They kind of have no choice but to take such a weird rotation to make sure that Soldier doesn't control that back high ground. And awkwardly enough, that fight he was not set up there. He was set up on the further back high ground, where he has a bit less of a crossfire, but a lot safer. So it was just kind of unfortunate that Shenandoah A, they did do what they had, like they have to go clear that high ground. And it was just such an awkward rotation for them, especially because the other high ground then had the Soldier with the Baptiste window just pumping out insane amount of damage. Like, you don't need the crossfire when you can just completely overwhelm them with window damage,
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. I think my big concern when it came to that rotation was the lack of a true execution. Yes, they did not have a Lucio to be able to kind of speed them around, and that's already kind of a big pain when running Brawl. But what I wanted to see them do is when they rotate. They spent a lot of time getting their shield poke out, especially for Dragon Blade, and that's going to be an increasing issue on Hanamura. This is an easily full holdable map on both sides. So if you're not being able to work as a team, well, I think we're going to see how much that becomes an issue moving on, especially since Hanamura can be very much a spam map and heavily reliant on how you want to take rotations.
Yeah. Usually you can do that Symmetra to alleviate it. I'm very curious to see if either team will play that Pharah double shield comp on defense, one of the better counters to a Symmetra teleporter attack. And I feel like this Hanamura usually, I feel like it just either is a 1-0 or like a 4-5, It either is a full hold or it goes on forever. So I'm very interested to see what both teams are going to run here.
Shenandoah walking out on the Wrecking Ball comp. Okay. I'm a little worried now. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know how confident I often feel about the Wrecking Ball composition on attack. I definitely think it works, but it is so easily broken, especially after if you lose it first fight, second point almost becomes a steamroll. So it's very much a glass cannon type of move.
They're not, GMU is not running a teleporter though, so we'll have to, maybe he can, kind of slam them and punish them as they try to rotate through this choke. They don't have the teleporter to make that rotation easily, and they're playing a bit of a poke composition themselves with this Orisa. So the ball just has to play to disrupt, because he's not going to be able to find really a kill especially on any tanks, or maybe on a squishy, but it's going to be tough with the Orisa playing so close to them.
Yeah, look at that already. Inform IB taking so much damage. Eventually, it's an amazing collapse that they committed to. That Dynamo was absolutely perfect to giving them that room. And, you know, I think my fears are now put away. Shenandoah, they already know what they want to do. And George Mason University are just so angry, they've immediately swapped over to Shadow Dive.
Yeah, Shenandoah's ball has been very good in this tournament thus far. We've seen it quite a few times, and he synergizes really well with King Kong Poppy, coming in from the front, causing a ton of disruption, and then King Kong Poppy cleaning up in the back. We're gonna see them switch over to a Tracer 6-man, try to punish and hack this ball as he rolls through.
He gives them some room. Zap already taking a lot of damage. Voidax able to figure them out, which hurts during this dive and rotation. They want to be able to play inside this mega health pack room, even eventually getting it out. But Shenandoah, they've built up ultimates, throwing that pulse bomb is able to kind of hit that mech for a tiny bit, but right in your face, he's going right out and look to try to play more onto the point. They get close ranging to capture that first tick, take out Dragon, and use that nano onto Sacred. Phenomena wants to be able to slow this fight down as much as possible, enable that res, and they just managed to be able to do it. However, the issue comes from the fact that IB still alive at 1 HP is coming up on that EMP. Shenandoah are eventually being able to bring this back, slowly getting the advantage, especially with that anti. It just seems George Mason are a little too incompetent to push in. So with this coalescence, that's where they kind of regain it like a prom boy and just move forward, throwing that bomb out for anyone, especially for Voidax, you know, a little love letter to him. Unfortunately enough, Shenandoah slowly kind of collapsing onto themselves, but still being able to bring it back. It's an even trade all around the board, but this second tick is captured. Shenandoah not going to be able to contest it freely, and this is where that long-term fight, when it should have been in their favor, kind of falls down.
Yeah, the healing from the Moira and Lucio is just eventually becomes kind of too much to overwhelm. It either you run out of healing resources and then you're dead, or you're able to, you know, properly conserve that bar and just kind of out-sustain the enemy team. That's what we see here, and they still held on to this EMP, walked straight into the ball and used it to pick them up. And
moving in, like I said, Steamroll's possibility to be able to come in. They're already using that Primal Rage Sound Barrier. They may have lost their Tracer, but that's not really someone you essentially need. Though this point is not really being contested too much, solely just because nobody was standing on it for a good bit until Shenandoah wants to be able to jump down. They are going to be going after the Void. That's that bomb clearly onto the point. Losing out any form basically means that they are not going to be able to have any long-term fight, especially if they are not melting down. King Kong's going to make sure of it, picking them up. Nobody's going to be left alive, and that's how you stop a steamroll before it happens.
Yeah, I like the solo EMP play to just pick off that ball. They just didn't really have another ult to kind of continue that aggressive fight with, right? They didn't have the coalescence. They used Primal to go in, but Zenyatta playing that back left corner just kited back into his own spawn and wasn't really in much danger.
Oh, though it seems kind of King Kong taking those words to heart, kind of when you were talking about George Mason, going in that danger and then being poked out. This high ground being pressured, Team Shenandoah are no longer going to have the room to kind of contest where they won that first take. Now going into the favor of George Mason, they are coming up on ultimates and they are looking to focus people out. Sure, that Zenyatta's managing to pick off that Moira, but it just seems that Shenandoah don't really have too much until King Kong comes back into the fight, manages to not only drop that pulse bomb out, but immediately start to one-clip everybody on the field. Winning that first tick is already a win condition onto itself, but at least George Mason have built up a good amount of economy here, at least that support ult and the 2 DPS ults to have some way to be able to come back in quickly.
They haven't really been able to sync up this coalescence with the EMP. We'll have to see if this naked EMP is going to work, especially because Feyna has the trans. It'll be awkward to go for like an EMP on the supports and just have it get tranced. It might be safer to try to EMP tanks and melt them down, but we saw that that didn't work for them last time, as the supports were just able to sustain and wait for those tanks to respawn.
It seems they want to be taking this fight directly to the high ground. George Mason just immediately moving in more like just brawling as their shadow dive composition works well with doing, throwing out that pulse bomb. Voidex almost walks into it, but just seems that Mission 26 wants to be able to clean it up the moment that they sensed it. Using that EMP and sound barrier combined together, it is more of a just a sustain against sustainability, as Shenandoah are more struggling to have their respawns coming back into their favor. That second tick already captured. They are pushing in. No Bob to be able to throw onto the points, more of just that transcendence to be able to consistently sit there. Still not enough. Slowly picked off. 1 minute and 14 seconds for the side of George Mason University.
Yeah, that time just opting to punish the Ashe who was on catwalk. It looked like she was getting out alive, but they used so many resources trying to save her. And GMU didn't really have to use that much to dislodge her, and of course she was still low, so got picked off pretty quickly after. That was a really smart play from GMU to just slowly War of Attrition take over those high grounds and then go to point.
I wonder for how long Shenandoah are going to kind of be more persistent when it comes to these single compositions. I definitely think they've been, Shenandoah A are absolutely really good on the Wrecking Ball composition. There's a time and a place for these ideas. And now moving out, their idea is going to be that teleporting strategy, which I often have mixed feelings of, but I'm more interested, Apathy, what do you feel on it?
I mean, I think it generally works. It's really annoying to play against. I mean, it's going to sound stupid, but to be quite honest, it either works or it doesn't. Like, you either cap first point and then snowball second point. You've got 6 minutes on the time bank, or it doesn't work, and you either continue trying to force it and get full held, or you have to switch to something else. So I'm going to see what they can do. George Mason, or excuse me, Shenandoah on the defense. Or George Mason on the defense doesn't have that far. They do have the Echo to spam damage onto that teleporter when it comes through. And they're running Torb as well, perhaps thinking that Shenandoah is going for something dive here.
I really like the fact that they already knew where Shenandoah was going. That takes a lot of dedication to memorize which way they're going to be setting up. However, they are still on the point, and you haven't solved that issue. The first tick being there. Now George Mason want to be able to contest, using that Orisa just as a way to beat the mediator, using that immortality, but then immediately walking out, seeing the dragon is going to feel pretty nice and happy when it comes to just shutting down this fight, though still taking an immense amount of damage, having to use that immortality of their own. The second tick is still captured, walling off one line of sight, forcing one way to walk in, forcing Matthew to try to do as much as they can. It's not helping. It's the window being there. Well, it's slowly kind of creeping up on them. Not enough room. Eventually, Shenandoah, they're going to be able to capture that second point before George University even die.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I mean, it's either 6 minutes or 0, right? They got the 6 minutes. I think the pocketed flyer is good here. Oh, well, we're getting right into the B fight, so.
Yep, it's kind of the big meat of it. The Brawl is trying to walk in, kind of win off of those advantages as much as possible. They got that copy onto the Diva, but they're frozen, so it's going to take them long to be able to touch the point. Soundbear gives them a little room. That Shatter, a little more inspirational than anything. The bomb trades in, finds out Sacred. But they're not being really able to capture any point. There's no pure focus fire on the side of Shenandoah. Now they've lost their tanks, meaning that they don't have anyone to protect them. So as much as they want to be able to capture this point, as much as they want to use that Blizzard, even managing to boot in the Ashe, they're fully inside that immortality. They're basically not going to die, and Shenandoah had to use a lot there, and they had nothing to show for it.
Yeah, I don't know if that Blizzard was really worth it. George Mason able to switch to that Brawl and just win out that War of Attrition with some respawn advantages. The Sim not really able to get set up in open space with their full beam and start pumping in damage. Mason does, however, still have the Ashe, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a little awkward if they speed onto her and catch her out, and she doesn't really have a pocket. But we'll see what they can do with that.
It seems Ender's going to be looking for that first pick, so it's going to be harder to move out, especially with that window now there to put in any damage for those involved. Matthew immediately listening to what I'm saying and just drops down onto the point. The Dragon Blade is going to be picked off, though, so at least this works more into your favor. George Mason's really nothing to worry about as they just push forward. They're stopping Shenandoah from really getting any room, especially since that window was kind of an ill vein. But still, Shenandoah, they need to build up an ult economy much faster. This time bank will not sit down for them.
And we're going to see a brutal stagger as well to kind of drain some time out of it as to make it go even longer. GMU did use the Shatter, but they're pretty much right back up to another one, and they still have Bob, which is generally pretty excellent against brawl compositions to just, you know, give you an extra second to contest the point without actually having to throw any of your bodies onto it. They're going to have another Shatter by the time Shenandoah pushes in. Are they going to see this coming?
I wonder how they're going to be able to try to use the Shatter. Seems they're more reliant on that teleporter. Just going after that poor Ashe. It's not that deep. You know, a little bit of hatred using that down there combined with the Blizzard against this own wall is more of a really good Uno reverse charge. Just being able to shut you down, using that big ability against yourself. You feel safe, you feel confident being able to walk in. And George Mason University, well, they're more than confident to be able to take out your tank line and then slowly pick off everyone else who weren't exactly prepared. A really good engagement, but eventually in the long run, poor execution.
Yeah, they used just a little bit too much to take out the Ashe and didn't really have anything for when they dropped and started fighting on point. Mason just investing that Blizzard and Shatter and really able to clean up that fight. Shenandoah A does now have a massive ultimate economy advantage, so we'll have to see what they can do with it, although GMU has some ults that they can kind of use to slow down these fights with the window and the bomb. It's basically going to come down to this Blizzard, I think.
I definitely have to agree. It's a really big ultimate, and especially that first pick onto the counter. Hey, losing on Dragon Blade means that you have to start investing if you want to be able to make a difference. That bomb, though, getting shielded out, it really hurts. 2 minutes on the clock, and I don't really think Shenandoah have had room to truly play this game. It's almost as if they're in an uncomfortable stance.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough running the Symmetra, like, after first and then the first fight on each point is always advantageous to the Symmetra because it's fast and chaotic. You don't quite always know where they're coming from, and you can get set up pretty well. Now, of course, GMU knows where the Symmetra is coming from. They're trying to stuff them in these chokes before they can even get a TP off, and it's just been a struggle for Shenandoah.
Now when moving in, it just seems Shenandoah are going to try to find anybody out of place more than not. But the issue is that they're out of place as we see them lose immediately, not only their Baptiste, but their front line. That Symmetra wanting to be able to stay on top of the Hydra as much as possible. And, well, it doesn't really pay out into their favor. They're coming up, they still have this Blizzard. They're coming up on this window, they're coming up on another wall. But the issue comes is that they've been using their ultimates, but their execution is very much flawed.
Yeah, and not necessarily always that it's flawed, also just that GMU is just clutch. Like they're using less ultimates and clutching up these fights. They're usually just hitting, you know, a big Shatter like that 2 fights ago that we saw that basically negated an entire push. Or a big Blizzard or a big Bob, stuff like that.
Wise words of someone I would know, that's me. It's got built different, and that's what Sacred is. Shutting down that Blizzard before it can try and take the fight. This bomb gonna be shielded out. That wall was used solely to just isolate it out, but now it's not gonna get much value in the long term. The Blizzard from the side of Shenandoah looks absolutely beautiful. They are now finding an opportunity to be able to move in without any fear of the world. Getting that first tick, George Mason University, this is where the stall comes in. Second tick, now we see right in your face, wanting to get right in your face. They even get that sound there to be right in your face, but there is not much that they can do. That microwave has been set up. This V-neck taking out the Doomfist. The squishies just walk on to the point only to be taken out because Shenandoah, they aren't ready. They managed to capture with overtime, meaning that, well, they're not going to be able to win this out. This is only a draw type of point. Still, though, that was a really good push.
Yeah, they finally were able to break through. I mean, at this level, like, both teams kind of know what their compositions do. They know how to execute them. They know how to path. So it starts to come back down to not necessarily mechanics, but honestly just like a bit more of that clutch factor and big playmaking. And in that fight, Sacred End made a huge play to eat that Blizzard and then get in aggressively to follow up on
Ready
his
for
own
battle.
Blizzard, just pumping in damage to those frozen members of GMUA, putting the team on his back to cap that point. We'll have to see what GMUA does on this offense, of course. Their first push was stagnated, and
Attackers
they switched to
incoming
this
in 30
zombie
seconds.
comp with the 6-man. Excuse me, gonna roll out on 6-man this time instead of a teleporter. I feel like teleporter's kind of safer when you really just have to win one fight in one tick, but we'll see if they can kind of punish this ball for going in once again and win the fight.
It's gonna be looking nice. They seem to just want George Mason University want to be walking out back onto the Shadow Dive Brawl. It's understandable, whatever true composition you want to work with. I'm more surprised Shenandoah is sticking onto the same one. I'm guessing they just feel confident, and that's not something I'm gonna stop them to do. It's only a minute on the clock, so they don't have too much to worry about. As long as they can lower down this time, they can win off of one fight. They'll be able to do a lot. Taking this early dive, being able to take out that Sombra is absolutely beautiful. Now Dragonblade can freely be as annoying as they want to. Looking around for this Tracer inside the small mini room. It's going to be poked, not going to be able to live. The rest of the team on the side of George Mason are now stuck inside this small little house. And, well, it's being invaded like 3 little piggies. There's just not much that they can truly get to be able to protect themselves. Though Shenandoah are having a lot of issues being able to walk in. It's not till that anti-hit. And with the comeback of IB, do they find somebody? And that's going to be Voidex, who's coming up on that Bob. An absolutely crucial ultimate. Now, we're seeing Shenandoah trying to make as much of a difference as they can, but Coalescence way too much, and they can't do anything against it. The bomb drops, but the Wrecking Ball has fallen, and you don't find much out of it. Though this res does give you room to be able to come back, and you even get a remake kill onto Zap. You're still struggling to be able to have these respawn timers in your favor, especially with Anform still alive. They're using that Nano Keeper Diva up. Waste some time. The Pulse Bomb now sitting around, just waiting to find somebody out of position. Voidex still could be able to just barely escape from it. It's in overtime, so now Shenandoah, they have a prized area. They're building close to the mine, and the moment they get it, they're going to pop it out directly in the middle of the point, so anybody who walks in is going to get hit. Sound barrier looking nice to be able to sustain them. Shenandoah slowly coming back, working as a unit, while George Mason, they are the ones finding picks. Though an even trade, still in everybody's right, that EMP is going to land out, and it just seems Shenandoah, well, they think they didn't have an opportunity to pop out their owns, which may cause them defeat on their own line, as that Ash doesn't have any room to really walk into the point, doesn't even get room to throw in that Bob, and it just seems that George Mason University, they're going to be taking the victory. Unfortunately enough, Shenandoah not going to get that revenge for their B-side.
Play of the game.
You're muted, by the way, Apathy. You guys don't realize it's so funny when I see Apathy start like
How about
talking.
now?
There you go. It's so funny. I see her mouth moving and then nothing.
I'm muting myself to cough and sneeze because I'm still a little sick, and sometimes I lose track of if I'm unmuted or not. But yeah, what I was saying was that it was a little bit awkward pushing into that mega room where GMU was so set up. And maybe they didn't quite realize that even some of those spawns had even gotten back. Like the Sombra had already somehow gotten back into that mega room after getting picked off first. And Shenandoah just kind of overstayed their welcome a little bit too much in there and kind of got punished for it. You would have liked to see them just take the 2 picks that they got and then kind of set up for next fight. Maybe try to, again, engage on the choke for the ones who are respawning. Just, kind of leave the core alone in the mega room and pick off the 2 that are trying to rejoin them from main, perhaps. Just an unfortunate end to what was a very, very, very close match. Even though it was a 2-0, Shenandoah not able to take a map, but a very, very, very close match on each map.